Right, we've taken all the measurements of Kirby, so the next thing we've got to now put that onto paper. So we'll start by cutting the jacket pattern. We do everything literally by measurements here. We only use blocks just to do the shapes, so we get the same shapes on everything. This is going to be the back. And we start literally with the length. Put our mark there to start with. 16.5 waist, 30 coat length. Put 1/4 of an inch on for a bit of shrinkage. You always get a little bit of shrinkage when you're doing this. 9.5 down, that gives me the armhole depth, so I know exactly where the depth of the armhole is. First two construction lines go on, and you'll see it all start coming together quite quickly actually. This goes on. This one comes in, so 1.25 inches at the bottom. Goes right down. And then we come across for the waist, which as you can see they're different heights, but that's all part of the construction. It does work. And then we start getting all the measurements on. We work to a scale, so that's what this stick tells you, gives you all the scales and everything. So it's worked off the chest size. So everything's half of the chest. So for instance, we got here, it's 38.5 chest, so we've got 1/6 of scale, which is 19, and there's 18, there's 20, so we've got 19, so we're 19.25, which brings you to there. And then bring that up. That goes up 3/4 of an inch, which will be to there. That'll give you your back neck. So as you see, it's starting to come together. This is the back neck, so that's your centre back. This point here is the centre back, which is here, and this goes right the way round to the top of the shoulder. Then we're working on the half back, which is 8.5 plus a seam, 8 3/4. Then we start, we'll square up from that one. This is called the back side of the jacket, and that's what gives you the back side, it gives you the shaping through the armhole. Again, back to the scale again, so we're 38.5, so we're 1/8 of scale, 1/4 of scale, and then the 1/8 of scale goes on there again, plus 1.25 inches. So then that one comes down to there. That's the shoulder, that's the back shoulder. So this part through here. We start, the basics is the formula. So we start with the formula, the basic formula, and then you start working different figurations off of the formula. So if you start with that, and then when we come to the cutting stage, you'll see I'll start probably not going to the lines, I'll probably go different places on the lines, and I'll alter this as we go along, because I can already see now it's not exactly how I want it. I think I'm slightly too long there, so I'm going to raise the balance up. I'll give it a little bit more front balance, because I think I'm going to have too much back balance the way it is at the moment, which means when the jacket's on, if I left it like that, it will sit like that. So I'm going to get rid of some of that. Now the back shoulder, when the shoulder goes onto the jacket, if you put the exact size back shoulder onto the front shoulder, you will end up with two massive great pulls through the shoulders. So you have to put 3/4 of an inch fullness into the shoulder. So it's 5 3/4 shoulder we're starting with, so that's going to be 6.5. And then as the tailor's putting it on, that'll push on in fullness, and believe it or not, 3/4 of an inch will get pressed away and shrunk away. Now, the waistline, we're again back to the scales again. This one, it's not half the chest, it's literally half the waist. So 35.5 is the coat waist, it's not the trouser waist. So that's 35.5 plus 3/4 of an inch. And then the seat is 40.5 plus 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to put them in for the time being, but I'm then going to play about with that, because to me that's too angled for my liking. So then I'm going to start playing about with the pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little round through the back, bring that in nicely through there, and then straighten that down to there. Because most people, your backs, if you look at your back's not dead straight. You've always got a slight curve on your back. So that's why, except for Mr. Kent, who's absolutely perfect. So what we're going to do is just put that little bit of curve on it, just to bring it in, and then we go back to that. I'm going to make that 36 plus the 3/4. So that's going to bring that to there, and then this again is half of the seat scale plus the 3/4 again. So I'm going to bring it to there. Side vents, if it's side vents, we put a little bit more flare on the side. If it's no vents, we'll just put a little bit of round through here and bring it in a little bit through there. But as you can now see, well, you will in a minute, that looks a much better line now. That's just too shaped in through the waist. So we'll get rid of that. We'll work to that line. So then we start from here, and then it's just put a little bit of round onto that. That will come to there, and that's give you the whole back pattern is now ready to chop out. Paper shears, of course, we have different shears for different things. These are just literally for paper, so we don't ruin our scissors, or shears as they call them. So when I'm cutting it out, I decided I want to put just a little bit more room through here, just to give Kirby a little bit of movement. Then, so that's the back of the jacket, that's finished now. Front of the jacket is worked off the back. So again, we start with a stick, we go right across. This is probably the most important mark on the whole jacket. This is the balance, that's where everything goes from. Right, so again back to measurements, we're half of the chest, that's 19.25. Put your first mark on, then 2 and 2, so it's 2 inches and 2 inches. Then we go quarter of the chest, so we're 19.25, that's 9 5/8. And then 3.5. Now the last construction through the chest is this one. So you go to the middle line there, back to this one we just put in, and that's half of that, which is 4. That'll give my armhole placing and the brake placing. The brake is the lapel on the jacket where it actually hits the neck point of the jacket. So that's what we will be working to on that. Okay. As you're working on the pattern, you're thinking also of the client. So in this case, obviously, I'm thinking of Kirby. So I'm thinking of how Kirby stands, what I'll be doing. Like for instance, he's got a hollow on his front shoulder. So we'll come to that in a minute when we come around to that part. Yeah, it's just an experience thing, really. It's just one of those things that come with many, many years of experience. I mean, the actual drafting the pattern is quite simple. You can go through any pattern book and just draft a pattern. But if you go by the old system of drafting patterns, you end up with the armhole so tight you can't even move because everything was much, much smaller across the shoulders and much smaller people in those days. And then you've got all different shoulders, for instance. You know, some people are very square, I'm very sloping. So that's what this line gives you. That tells you the slope of the person's shoulder. So that gives you that. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's put this front marking. I'm going to go to just get these measurements in and then we'll start working on the shoulder. So we're back 3.5 inches through the hip line and then it's literally take the hip measurement, so you take your back measurement and then go straight onto this measurement here.
Why does he want me to ring him? Is there any need to?
And then you go half the seat. I just push it through like that and it gives me my line there. It's just so where I know the measurements, so when I turn the paper over, I'll know exactly where I want to be. Now I'm going to start, I know for a fact, this literally is going to be wrong. So I'll put it in for the time being, but that's just far too angled. That's probably going to finish somewhere there, but we'll leave that for the time being and come back to that one. So this is the balance we were talking about earlier. So this is your neck point. So we'll be 3/8 of an inch in front of that neck point. Now, I'm going to bring it back a bit because I like to do what's called more of a crooked coat rather than a straight coat. Straight coat's where the fronts are going more forward and give you a bigger chest. I'm going to a slightly crooked coat, which means we bring it back. When you have a crooked coat, you bring your neck point back this side of the line. Straight coat is when you're bringing the neck point past that line. Then literally just wham that in. We got that. So now we got the basis of, we don't need this for the time being. Very unscientific this, but it works perfectly well. Put that onto your neck point, which is there. Spin it round. Back onto the neck point, spin it round. That'll give you your button position and your waist. So waist goes to there. And the bottom will go to there. Then we can shape that in a minute. I like to rub that out because it's no use whatsoever. It was just a guide for me. Now when I was talking about the neck point earlier, I was talking about bringing it back. So I'm just going to, before I actually put the neck point in, I'm just going to see where my armhole shape, see if I like the shape or not. So 5 3/4 shoulders. Measure your 5 3/4. This is where one of the only reasons I use the block pattern for is just because this is my armhole shape and it tells me exactly how I like the armhole. And we use it for the sleeves because actually cutting a sleeve from scratch is a long process and it takes a hell of a long time. Now what I'd say, I know I'm gonna need a bit more back balance for Kirby. So what I'm gonna do is, this bit here is telling me that I need really to bring that, I'm gonna bring that up to there to shorten the front balance up, just to give it a bit more back balance. So again, then I just use my block, come down to there. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I was thinking the front balance was just going to be a bit too long for Kirby, so I'm just really going to shorten the front balance a bit more, give him a bit more back balance. Now, he hasn't got a huge chest. I'm not going to build up a huge chest on the jacket. So I'm really, this is the break. I'm not going to put a neck cut in this one. I don't think he needs it. I don't have a neck cut myself. We start off with 3 1/4 lapel. Our gauge, the gauge is the lapel, which I'll show you on this actually. This is called the gauge. It's the height of the lapel. I'm not going to start, it really doesn't matter too much at this stage, so I'm going to keep it quite high. And then that, during the fittings, that will change. And bring that round just to there. And then again, I just use a block pattern to get the lapel shape. It's just to make my life easier more than anything else. And then the front edge, have we got, having a look, it's a 1 button front, so we're going to keep it nice and cut away, which will bring that to there. So that gives you the basis of the pattern. Now I'm going to start putting the darts in, where we got all the darts in the pockets. The front cut goes off of the neck point. That really should come in line with the neck point. You just check it right. Okay, there's probably a scientific way to get the pocket position, but it's a way some very, very old person taught me to do many years ago. His name is Mr. Kent. And it's literally to get the pocket position. It's 11 inches up, 12 inches down, and in the middle of that, that gives you virtually the perfect pocket position. With Kirby's, we're having slant pockets, so keep it nice and slanting. We go 3/4 up, 3/4 down from the back. That gives you your pocket position. I'm going to put this dart in, and I'm going to look just to see my measurements, to see what I want to do, where I want to play about with the fronts for measurement wise. So again, I literally taking all the seams off. The back seam is actually sewn in the mark, so there's no seam off of that. So we start 6 3/4. The front edge, at this stage it will be sewn in the mark, but it will finally finish up with a seam off. Jump all the darts. This seam is sewn in the mark. We put a seam on. We'll allow, as we're cutting it, we will allow a seam on. I don't know if you saw John, when John done it, he has his is cut in the mark, so he will actually cut in those marks, whereas when we're cutting it, we would allow a seam on there. It's just a way of different construction, that's really all. So it's 35 1/2, 17 3/4, plus 1.5 inches for makeup, you know, it's because you don't want it obviously skin tight when you're wearing the jacket. So 18 3/4, 19 1/4. There's a seam coming off that. So I'm 1 centimetre or 1/2 inch too big on that, which I thought it would be, because that to me that's just kicking out far, far too much. And it's a little bit net through here as well. So what I will do, this will give me both. just by moving that tiny little bit. So I'm taking all that flare off, which we really don't want. So if we'd have left that on, this bit here, when we're trying the jacket on in the base stage, it would have been very, very skirty and very flary. And that's really not how we like it. But you know, the measurements dictate that, but obviously measurements are only a guide when you're cutting. And it's just giving me a little bit more through the back there, which will just give Kirby a bit more room through the back. So putting it all together, I'm going to do some more cuts on it in a minute, unfortunately. I don't like total straight lines because when the tailor actually sews it together, I like to have just little curves on the lines. If they're too straight, it tends to go hollow the other way and it can cause a little bump. Now, that's the side body, which is this part here on the jacket. And this is the front. We put, the actual term for this is called a belly cut, but that's not really totally correct, and the real reason we do it in a true sense is just by closing this in and opening that out there. What it does when the jacket's being made, it actually makes it nice and clean through this part, so you don't get bubbles through this part. I know it sounds stupid, but it actually does really work. This is just the easiest way to do it. You can do it in construction, but it's just so much more simpler doing it this way. Well, on the real jacket, by opening or putting this little cut through here and opening it up through the pocket, so when the tailor makes it, that means he doesn't have to come out on this dart to a point. So this is the waistline, so this will, if you didn't have this dart here, this will come out to a point there. It can cause a bubble around the bottom of the pocket. So that's one of the reasons. Then the other reason, I'll just fold it and show you why, what will actually happen. That's the best way. That gets sewn to there, that will come to there. That will get closed up, and obviously the pocket will get closed up. That will come to there. And what it does, this part through here, it makes it nice and short. So it just shortens it a little bit, and it actually gives a little bit of tension through here, and it makes it very clean. It's a brilliant cut, actually. Works so well. I think if you go back to the systems as they were cut many years ago, they didn't used to do it this way. It was called a Donlan wedge cut in them days, and they used to, this was left on, and the whole thing was cut, and it used to end up like that. But you don't get so much shape when you're doing that. You don't get so much styling to the coat. So this has been put in to be much better. And then not too much flare, but we want just that little bit on the side seam, on the side body, sorry. And then I can work on this chest. Going from experience, I know, and the tailor who's going to be making this works up a bit of a chest, so I'm going to actually take quite a bit off there, which looks ridiculous, but when it's actually made, I know full well that's going to come dead straight. Once it's actually tailored, that will be dead straight. And then the front edge. And then we'll fill all the details onto the pattern, but that really has brought the pattern together. What I'm going to do on it as well, I'm actually going to, looking at the pattern, that's where the button is, that's to the bottom. I just think it looks too high. So what I'm going to do is just lower that button position to there. That's just, personal choice really. It's just how I see it. Some people may like it higher. We just prefer ours a little bit lower. I think the proportions look better as well that way. So that is the front of the jacket. This will be the lapel, so I'll fold it back just to show you. And you can start to see it when the lapel's back. So that will be that part of the jacket. That will be the front. With the lapel going back. This bit then goes onto the back and round under the arm and fix it all onto the back of the jacket. And that will all get sewn together. And that tells you, I've just given it a slightly higher back balance than normal. Not a great deal, it's just like 3/8 of an inch. That to me, then that's a lovely armhole shape as well. So now this is finished, the next stage of it will be going to Siomba to do the cutting, and then the fabric will be cut, the trouser pattern will be cut, the fabric will be cut, and then it will all be folded up with all the trimmings, the linings, the canvas and everything, and then going off to the tailor to be sewn together for the first fitting. Hook ready for when we cut the fabric out.